Welcome to video 2 in our series of SketchUp tutorials. This is presented by Big Beams Timber Frames in upstate New York. In this video, we will be drawing a trestle pony, the model that you see in front of you. You'll notice there is no joinery added at this point. We'll do that in our next video. So we will be drawing this model. It is a trestle pony that is used for holding timbers during timber frame layout and joinery cutting. The trestle pony has a working height of 30 inches and a working width of 42 inches, which seems to be pretty useful. Of course, you could modify that for your height or for the size of timber you're working on simply by shortening these posts. And all the rest of the dimensions would be the same. So these trestle ponies can be made. You can make a pair of these with the following number of timbers. You would need one 6x6 by 8 foot timber, and you would need two 4x6 by 10 foot timbers, and then you would also need some pegs. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to draw this and hopefully how to avoid some common mistakes for beginners. In our next video, which will actually be the third one, I'm going to show you how to include joinery that you see here. This is in X-ray mode. You'll see that tenons have been added. And then in the video after that in the series, I will show you how to add pegs to your layout. After all these videos are done, there will be another video that will show you how to make shop drawings and how to put dimensions on those, which will be very helpful. So we'll start off with our blank SketchUp screen. You'll notice some toolbars along the top. I have it set up so I have a larger toolbox here on the side. And the tools that we will learn to use in this video include the tape measure tool, which is right here, the rectangle tool, the push-pull tool, the move tool, which is often called the move copy tool, the dimension tool, and the two-point arc tool. The specific skills that you will build during this video include making and naming components, flip components along certain axes like the red axis or the blue axis or the green axis, and how to cut curves in timbers. So aside from learning how to use these tools and these specific skills, I will try to show you how to avoid some common mistakes that I made when I was a beginner. So let's get started. So the first tool is the tape measure tool. If you click it once, then you see I can come over, and as I hover over an axis, you'll see a little box appears. And right here, you'll see an actual origin. Now, some folks start to draw their models starting right at the origin. I like to come off from the axes a little bit so that my model is not right on top of the line. So if I take my tape measure tool and I hover over the green and I click and I drag while I'm holding the mouse button down to the right, then you'll see it creates this dashed line, which is known as a guideline. If you notice down in the bottom right corner of the screen, you will see a box that says length 7 foot 5/16 inch. That's telling me how far away from that axis I have dragged. And you can drag it anywhere you want. And then when you let up, if I type 24 inches, you'll see that appears in the box, and then I hit enter, and it automatically puts that this line 2 feet from there. And I'm going to do the same on this axis. I'm just going to drag. And one of the ways I can make sure that I'm staying in the right, you see how the green arrow appears. I can actually hover over the green arrow, and that forces it to follow where I want. So I'm going to go 24 inches again. Now, this is something that's very important. You cannot actually type. You can't click in this box and type the distance there. You just drag and then let up, and then when you type, it'll go there, and then you hit enter, and it automatically adjusts it. So all I've really done is I've created some new lines that are parallel to these axes, but a little bit away from the origin. So when I start designing, I'm good to go there. So my first guideline that I'm going to use is I want to draw the bottom of one of the feet or the bases for this trestle pony. It's going to be 6 inches wide. So if I hover over the dashed line, my guideline, I click and hold down, that's a left click, and then I start dragging and then let up, and I'm going to type 6 inches and enter. And so what that has done is that has drawn a parallel line 6 inches away from my original line. Now the base for these I want to be 20 inches long. So if I come up to this line, I click and drag along it, making sure that I'm still showing the green line, which means I'm parallel, and let up, and then I type 20 inches and then enter. You see what I've made here basically is a rectangle that's 6 inches wide, 20 inches long. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool, click it once, and then notice when I hover over these lines, it'll switch to that little red box when I'm right on top of the line, but this is very important. Watch as I connect to this intersection. When that shows that X, I know I'm exactly at that intersection. That's going to be very important. So once I'm there, I hold my mouse button down and I drag diagonally to the opposite or the diagonal one, and I see the other X. You'll notice in the dialog box in the bottom right corner, it shows that that is 6 inches wide and 1 foot 8 inches long, which is 20 inches. So I'm going to let up. I've created a rectangle there. Now I need to stretch that upward 6 inches. So I'm going to use the push-pull tool. Now notice when I hover over this, well, it's not real easy to see, but the shade changes. And then I'm going to hold my mouse button down and then drag upward and then let up, and I'm going to type 6 inches and enter. What I've done now is I've basically drawn a 620 component. That's what it's called. And this becomes very important. We need to actually name this component. So to do that, I'm going to triple click on it with my left mouse button. 1, 2, 3. You'll see it all highlighted in blue, and you'll see like a little polka dot pattern there. Now I'm going to right click, going to come down to make component. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to go left base. And then I'm going to click create. Then with I'm going to hover over the select tool, and I'm going to click just somewhere outside of that component, and the blue goes away. So I've created this and I've named it. I've given it a name, and it is a component. That's going to be very, very important. Now the spacing for my next base or foot of the trestle pony from inside to inside, so inside diameter, I suppose you could say, is going to be 22 inches apart. So I'm going to come back to my tape measure tool. I'm going to grab that line, and then I'm going to move this way. Now notice how I have a red line now. That's going to be very important. I can make sure I'm on a red line if I hover over a perpendicular line and just follow it. And then I'm going to type 22 inches and then let up. So this is my inside space. So I could come back and I could pull out another 6-inch guideline here, and that would be fine. Just redraw it completely, or I can actually make a copy of this. So let's do that. So this is our move copy tool. I'm going to click it once, and you'll notice it is a different cursor now. I'm going to come over to this corner, because what I want to do is I want to slide this whole thing over to here. But this is going to be my inside diameter complete empty space, so I don't want to drag this edge, because it would come out to here, and the inside diameter would be 6 inches less. We don't want that. So I'm going to drag it from this corner. Now this is very important. If I tried to move it now, if I just held it and slid it, well, I'm moving the whole thing. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a copy. So I'm going to come back to Edit, Undo. It's back there now. Now, as I hover over it, if I hit Control, this is on PC, if I hit Control, you'll see a little plus sign showed up. So now I'm going to go down to that corner, and because I have a guideline there, I can just drag along that guideline until I get to that intersection, and it snaps to that spot. I can double check it with my guideline by just going here and dragging across, and I have 1 foot 10 inches, which is the 22 inches I want. So everything is fine and dandy. So I've made a copy of this base and put it over here. So any changes I make to this one will automatically update to this one and vice versa. That's going to be important. We'll talk about that later on. You can make that work differently. So I'm going to actually now delete these guides, because when you start having a lot of guidelines, they get confusing. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to delete guides. The next thing I need to do is I need to put some vertical posts. The posts are 4 by 6, and I want them centered in these feet. So I'm going to come up to my tape measure tool again. Now notice when I'm on a corner, I have a little purple circle. As I go along, I have a purple box, but then when I get to the center of it, it snaps to the center and I have a circle again. That's very important. I'm going to go there, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to slide this way. And I want to find the midpoint of this. So if I just go along here on the edge, I just keep sliding until it gets to that circle. Now it looks like it's not the midpoint, but you see it says 10 inches, and 10 inches is the midpoint of the 20-inch long base. So this is the center line. I'm going to put a 4 by 6 timber post right there centered on that line. So I need to now go from this line backwards 2 inches. So if I just go along that and then let up and I type 2 inches, it'll automatically put that guideline there. I can come back and grab the center guideline and drag along this, and 2 inches, and there it is. I'm going to go get rid of this middle line because I don't need it anymore. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw another rectangle starting right here. And again, notice the X. I click it once and then I just drag to the opposite corner, click it again. And then I'm going to use my push-pull tool to drag that upward. And these are going to be 18 inches. So if I use my push-pull tool, notice how when I go over it, it changes the shade and there's a little like polka dot pattern. I grab it and hold my mouse button down and I start to slide up. I let up and then I type 18 inches, enter, and I've now made a post. Here's the dilemma. If I don't make it a component, it will assume it's still part of this component. So we're going to go through the make component process again. So I'm going to triple click it, then right click, make component. I'm going to name it post 1 and create. I'm going to click outside it, and I can do the exact same thing I did when I made this other copy. I go to my move copy tool and I come over here. It's important, notice I want the post, not the base. So the post lights up blue. I'm going to hit Control and you'll see a little plus sign show up. I'm going to grab that corner and I'm going to drag it right along that guideline. The guidelines are very important to help you line things up. When I get it there, I just let up on my mouse and there it is. So I have made a copy of those posts. I'm going to delete guides again because they're messy and in the way. By the way, I have a mouse that has a roller ball, and as I roll forward or backward, it zooms in or out. If I hold the roller ball down and then move my mouse, it pans around, or orbits is the actual term for it. Okay, so now we're going to make the top plate. And this is a little bit trickier, but not too bad. I'm going to go with my tape measure tool. In this case, I don't want to be right at the center. What I basically want to do is I want to make a dash line that goes across this. So if I start here and then come over to the corner and click, then there's a guideline. Alternately, I could come down here and drag a guideline up, and that would work the same way. So I have that, and I'm going to do the same over here. I have a guideline, and you notice it's 1'6", just like I want it. Now we want the top plate to be 42 inches wide. Our outside spacing from the post to post is 34 inches. That leaves us an 8-inch difference. And this is going to allow our top plate to hang 4 inches over on each end. So I'm going to come to the center here, click once, and then just start dragging. I'm going to hover over that other dashed line. I'm going to type 4 inches. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Four inches. And now I can make a rectangle that goes from this corner. Remember, I need that X to this corner. And you'll see down in the bottom right in the dimension dialog box, it says 3 feet 6 inches, which is the 42 inches that we want. And it's 4 inches wide. So I just click, and now I have a rectangle there. I'm going to use my push-pull tool, and I'm going to drag it up. This is a 6-inch top plate. All right, I'm going to delete guides to get them out of the way. But now I have to make this a component. So I'm going to triple click it, right click, make component, and I'm just going to call it plate. You can call it whatever you want. And then I'm going to create that. I'm going to click outside that. So now the only thing left is to draw the tie beam. The tie beam is 6 inches tall by 4 inches wide, and I want that to be centered on here. So I'm going to use my tape measure tool. I'm going to grab here and drag down. If I go along the side, I'm just going to wait till it turns into a circle. Boom. And there I'm at the midpoint, which is 9 inches. I can now grab that line and go upward, because remember, this is going to be 6 inches tall. So if I go 3 inches up, and then I go 3 inches down, that has drawn that out. I can get rid of my center guideline. I'm just clicking delete after I highlight it. I'm going to draw a rectangle here, this time from this corner. Notice the X. I'm going to click it once and then drag downward. And I really need to find that X, and something's not looking right. There it is. Once I have that, and then I can drag this across here till it gets to the midpoint, and then let up. And I have created that tie beam. So I'm going to delete guides, and you will see that this is centered. So the next step to doing this is, it's really nice to have this decorative curved arch here. So I'm going to use the tape measure tool a little bit differently. I'm going to come over and grab it. Now, instead of making a guide line, I'm going to make a guide point. So instead of grabbing in the center and dragging this, or and sliding my mouse this way, which gives me a line, I'm just going to go to this corner. Notice here it's like a hollow circle, and down here it's an actual dark green circle. I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to drag this way, and then I'm going to type 2 inches, enter. You'll see I have this little tick mark there now. That is my guide mark. I'm going to do the same thing over here, dragging along that line, 2 inches, and then I'm going to come up to my 2-point arc tool. Oh, I just remembered I have not made this into a component, so that's a problem. So I'm going to undo the guides. I'm going to triple click this, make component. I'm going to call it tie, and then create. So now that I've made it a component, I'm going to triple click it because I need to identify that I'm going to change that tie. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my guide points. So 2 inches here, 2 inches here, and then I can come back and use my 2-point arc tool. So I click that, and then if I come to this point, click it once, and then go to this point and click it once, and then I move it upward, then I will type 2 inches and then enter, and it has created an arc that is 2 inches in from each end and 2 inches up from the bottom. So it will be 4 inches down from the top. When you're doing regular timber frames, you never want to take more than 1/3 of the timber out when you're doing a curve, which is, something we do on braces frequently. So I'm going to triple click this to activate it, and then I'm going to go up to my push pull tool, and now you'll see, because that arc is there, I can highlight just the curve that I want, hold my mouse down and slide backwards, and it's gone. Then I go back to my select tool and click outside, and I have drawn this complete model without joinery. Okay, so I'm just going to take a moment and show you the dimension tool. This is right over here, so I can click on that once. If I now come up to here and click once and then slide my mouse and click again and slide it up, that gives me the dimension there. If I want to know that this is 6 inches, I can do the same thing here. I can click here down to there. I know that's 1.6. I can click here. All I'm doing is clicking once, then sliding my mouse, then clicking again. This is a 6 by 6. I click it once, slide it across, click it again, boom. And that shows you your dimensions. You can put them wherever you want. So this concludes this video tutorial. In our next video, we will draw joinery into this model. Hope you've enjoyed this.